Welcome to Liberty FM, the podcast dedicated to all things New York Liberty. I'm Felicia, and I'm joined by my co-host and husband, Francois. We're on to Game 5, where the Liberty face off against the Chicago Sky. Not the outcome we wanted, as the Liberty were handed their first loss of the season. Chicago defeats New York 90-81. Francois, where should we begin?
It's hard to begin anywhere, really, but I gotta give props to T. Weatherspoon and the Chicago Sky. They came well prepared, and they are a well-coached team. Mm-hmm. You could tell that all those ladies were fighting for her and had a point to prove. I mentioned before that this is a team that has a lot of players that are on the revenge tour because they were not given a chance by their previous teams or cut from a team or, sort of misunderstood. So you have a lot of players that are hungry, and it showed tonight. We had Kennedy Carter, Mabry, a lot of tremendous talent in this team, but I think it's Weatherspoon that really prepared them very well for this game, and they showed tonight.
Yeah, you definitely got to give your respect to Teresa Weatherspoon just because she came back into this building and, she's a Liberty for life. We know that. But even I was a little nervous. I was like, she's been around the Liberty for a long time. She knows this team. She's been in that locker room even just to, motivate them and encourage them. She knows the plays and she sees it. She's been around it for quite some time. And so I was wondering what she would draw up for the Liberty. I figured this game would not be easy just because of her being the coach, and I thought, man, this could be a tough one. And even looking at their preseason game, they looked a bit complacent preseason. So I wasn't too worried, but the fact of how much they lost by, I was like, this team might be interesting because they got grit, they got fight. It's not just Angel Reese, it's everyone. It's all the other players too, from Mabry, Carter, Evans. Everyone contributed, and it started with defense. I think they really gave a tough time to our bigs, especially down in the paint. Hands everywhere. You definitely got a lot of turnovers coming in the paint during this game, and you got to give it up to their defense. Teaspoon, she is a defensive coach for sure, and so I think that's what really helped the Chicago Sky get this win. They were all over the place. They were quick. They were feisty. They had that grit. I don't know that it took the Liberty by surprise. I definitely think it rattled them a bit, especially JJ. She got 2 quick fouls in the first quarter. And once you start getting her into foul trouble, that just gets everyone out of rhythm, especially for Sandy Brondello. She's going to have to get her to the bench early when you're used to putting Sloot to the bench early. And now you got to make these adjustments. And, I think Nyara Sabally, again, I'm going to continue giving her flowers. She did a great job coming in and playing so many minutes, while JJ was in foul trouble throughout most of this game. She did an amazing job. I would love to see her get more minutes too, coming off the bench. But ultimately in this game, the defense took over for Chicago, which led to offense, and it led to some amazing shots, even by Mabry. She led she led all players tonight with 21 points. And so, this was just, you just got to chalk it up that this was not the night for the Liberty. And they might have needed this loss. But again, also, it was 5 games in 6 days?
I think about 10 days.
10 days,
I think the first game of the season was May 14th for the Liberty.
Yeah, so now we're at the 23rd, so close to 10 days. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot.
5 games versus Chicago, that was only the 3rd game.
Yeah, so I'm not saying the Liberty are tired. I don't think they're tired, but it is getting into this rhythm of playing a game every couple of days, and some teams have some more time off before their next game. I think the rhythm's going to get crazy for all the teams when it comes to June and July, but for now, it is what it is. They got to play it just, how it is.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. You mentioned Jonko Jones and Sabally. We'll definitely talk about them again a little later. But let's unpack everything, because the first half was horrible. Well, let's not beat around the bush. The first half was horrible. I cannot remember how many points they scored in the first half. 32 points for one of the best offensive teams in the league. Yeah. That was not pretty at all. I don't know if it was fatigue, complacency, not really like prepared to face a team that was hungry. There was a lot of different factors, and it was hard to really pinpoint one in particular. Like you mentioned, JJ was out like super quick with 2 fouls. One of them was very questionable. I always say, let's not talk about the ref. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to talk about the ref at some point.
The refs had questionable calls in this game.
We'll talk about them in the last part probably. But yeah, having JJ off so quickly and putting Sabally on different type of game, obviously. But you cannot feed Junko Joe in the paint and provoke fouls. So that was one thing. You mentioned the turnovers. How many times do you see a Chicago Sky kicking the ball from behind, slapping the ball. Yeah, slapping the ball. Sorry, not I'm thinking about soccer. Slapping the ball from behind, whether it was Stewie or JJ. So a lot of turnovers. That was really frustrating. And the only player that had things going for herself was Sabrina Ionescu. And that's very strange that at the end of the game, post-game conference, she said I should have been smarter with my shots. She was actually the only player that I felt like was taking the right shot. She attacked the paint a numerous amount of times. And it's really becoming part of a game now, and making it difficult for the defenders to figure out a game, because now it's not just a 3-point shooter. She could do pretty much everything, and I quite like her as the point guard. We'll talk about that as well. But I felt like it was actually the other players that were rushing their shots instead of really doing the ball movement that they're accustomed to, where everybody's involved on offense, everybody's moving. I felt like they would just try to play hero ball and just shooting a quick free, and their frees were not necessarily getting in right away. So, that gives easy basket for Chicago, because that was another thing, the transition defense. They were very slow to get back on defense. Meanwhile, Chicago was speeding up on the other side to score. Kennedy Carter, Mabry, they were super quick, and they were just not hesitating to kill that transition defense from the Liberty.
Yeah, I think there are definitely a couple of missed shots for the Liberty. And it's just unfortunate. The ball just wasn't going in, and I think also finishing. For some of the players like Benijah and Stewie, shots just weren't going down. And once JJ was out of the game, Nyara came in and she got some buckets. She did her thing. I think Sandy should have probably kept her in there a little bit longer, or subbed her in even later, just to get that 2-man game with her and Sabrina, just to get points on the board. I think that was a nice thing to see, just Nyara and Sab having that pick and roll action. And it also begged me to question, how come they don't do that more with JJ? I think...
it's a different game. I mean, obviously, JJ can offer, outside shooting that maybe Nyara doesn't have just yet. So if you have the pick and roll, JJ can kill with a free, or she could go to the basket. I feel like Nyara is kind of different. When she sets a screen, she tends to go towards the paint. I would say maybe she's a little quicker with the ball, if she attacks the basket than JJ. So it offers different options. But like you said, Sandy should have played her more. I mean, she had 8 points and 6 rebounds. But she had 4 points really quick as soon as she replaced JJ, when she had 2 fouls. And that combo with Sab, that's something that I definitely want to see again, because that gives you another option on offense rather than just the usual Sab, Stewie, JJ, or Benijah, who had an off night, I would say. I mean, we're always full of praise of Benijah Laney, and she has been tremendous for the Liberty, but today was just a little weird. It took her a while to score her first basket. quite a few times she had open threes in the corner, but she settled for like a pump fake, then going to the basket. There was one time she turned the ball over. One time she kind of hesitated to take a mid-range and then ended up missing it. It was like a bit of an off night for Benaja.
I think it was a bit of an off night for everyone.
She had that missed layup as well at some point.
I mean, I think it was just an off night for everyone, not just Benaja. I mean, Sab led the team in points. She ended up with 19 points. Stewie ended up with 18 points, but I think Stewie got going more into the second half. Yeah. Especially probably in that third quarter, which happens to be the only quarter that the Liberty won in this game. Yeah. So, it's going to be tough. I think they'll definitely bounce back from this, but this was just a tough loss. I think part of this too, I think Brondello got outcoached by Witherspoon. You
think?
I think so, because the way they lock the paint up as much as they can. I mean, Stewie and JJ got some shots, but they were difficult to get. This wasn't easy layups. She might have had like a handful of easier layups, but most of the shots in the paint were heavily contested shots. And, I think that for the Liberty, you got to take this loss. You learn from it. You got to see what changes and tweaks you got to make. Just getting back, not just settling. And even when the refs got on everybody's nerves tonight.
Trust me, we keep a special spot for them at the end of the podcast.
The refs got on everyone's nerves tonight, but you can't let that stop you and get in your head. You got to get back on defense, and that's where Chicago would kill you too. It's like that transition defense was just poor tonight. And so they also got more points off of that. I mean, Mabry is a great player, as annoying as she may be on the court. If you're rooting for,
Mabry's team, you're going to definitely love her. But if you're in the opposite ends, she could be very annoying. But she's a great talent.
Yeah, she's a great talent. And so that 3-point, she don't need much space to get that 3-point shot off. And so they just made good decisions. They were aggressive. They were the aggressor tonight, not the Liberty. They got, once you get the Liberty frustrated, they just kind of came apart. And even when they tried to come together, they definitely came together better in the third quarter. But, once they tied it or even got a 1-point lead, Chicago Sky came right back. And whether that, some people may think with the shady foul calls by the refs or no calls, when clearly there were fouls. Either way, the refs didn't completely ruin this game. I think you got to give it to the Chicago Sky and how gritty they were tonight. So.
Yeah. So now let me ask you a question, because you're a born and bred New Yorker. I'm from Paris, so I'm still kind of new. It's been 7 years now, 8 years I've been in New York.
You're not that new.
Yeah. Okay. Now I've settled in. But anyway, my question is the following. Do you think like New York teams have this sort of like mentality when they start winning or things are going their way, that there's this form of complacency and they kind of need like a wake up call, like a bad loss or something that to wake them up and reminding them that they have to make the daily efforts? Because before we started recording, we were sort of listening to a space on X. And, people were saying like, New York teams, it's like that. Like they need a loss to kind of like wake them up and for them to not be complacent. And when I'm looking at the post-game conference, as Sandy Brondello said, we were not very good and we didn't have the mindset. I would say that they were a tough matchup for us because of what they do. Sometimes you need a loss and a kick in the butt to face adversity to see how you respond. We're not where we need to be. So is this like a New York thing or not?
I think you can say for some of the teams it can be. I think when you think about the NBA teams, I would say, we're Brooklyn Nets fans, and I respect the Knicks, but we are a Brooklyn Nets fan, and so. Yeah, when you see it, you can see some complacency, some laziness. For the Liberty tonight, though, their preseason game against Chicago, they look complacent.
That should have been motivation, right?
But it's preseason. I do think, though, they started off the season with an easier task.
That's true.
They defeated Indiana.
Twice. They had the Mystics, who, is being, sort of projected to be one of the bottom teams in the season. And then they had Seattle on the back-to-back. So,
I don't know that I don't believe they faced their toughest. I didn't think they faced their toughest opponents yet.
Yeah.
I think I was waiting, like, the first 4 games were the games they should have won. That, hands down. They should have won those. I think here, I was hoping that they would beat the Sky tonight. I thought it would be close. The game I was waiting for was actually their next game, which is going to be against Minnesota on Saturday, because that's a tough team. And I think that's a team, just like Connecticut, just like Las Vegas, is going to be hard for the Liberty. Chicago surprised me a little bit, but I think that also comes down with coaching. I think you got a coach that has put a lot of belief and trust in these players, and they want to give it right back to their coach. You can tell how much they want to win this for her, how much they want, like, first year as a coach, they want to give her as many victories as possible. And that also comes, you got to give respect to Witherspoon. I mean, for her players to come out and play the way they did, and for her to just be so humble and so grateful for it. When you see these videos of her when they win and she got her head down looking like she's crying, I don't know, she's just emotional. But again, when you see that just gets players going, and they're going to want to fight for you. They're going to want to play hard. And they did, and that's what happened. The Liberty kind of got slapped in the mouth tonight, and that's what needed to happen, because they needed to see, like, okay, you had it easy. Indiana, Washington, Seattle on a back-to-back. You had a little bit of easy. Now, let's get into the rhythm. Let's get against these tougher teams. Let's see what you can do now.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, what did you make of Angel Reese? So that was the first game in New York, and she brought the crowd. Like, more 200 sections were open compared to the previous game against Seattle, and you could tell that we always talk about Caitlin Clark bringing crowds for every game, but other rookies are also there. Angel Reese, Cameron Brink. And I felt like a lot of people show up because they were interested to see that player who, won a title with LSU in college. And I felt like she's different, like, in a good way, obviously. Like, she has a drive in her. Like, she didn't play like a rookie, really. Like, she played like an experienced player that knew how to provoke fouls and what to do and make herself useful for the team, even when, some of her shots were not necessarily getting in. She was doing many other things to help the team win.
She's a tough player.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna do great in the W. I think just based on her position, she's gonna have, I don't want to say, it's not gonna be a slightly easier ride than, even for her, Cameron Brink. I think sometimes for the bigs, their positioning is a bit different. They don't got to worry about, bringing the ball up and having to, like, figure out the offense. They can get to their spots. They can be where they, get to where they need to be. They don't have to necessarily see the floor the way point guards have to. And so for her, she's gonna be a monster. She's definitely gonna be a monster. She is gonna be that good, and you can see that. Yeah, she's gonna have to work on her shot a bit, and but she's a rookie, so that's just gonna take time, and that's she'll develop that. She'll get better at that. But she has some great shots though, even in this game. Even though it was a few, she made sure to get to the free throw line. I mean, most of her points came from provoking fouls, and so that's something that I think teams will definitely have to watch out for with her, is that, yeah, she may not have the best field goal percentage out there, but she can provoke fouls. So she's going to know what to do trying to get to the line, even if, maybe her shooting is not that great for the night. But yeah, she's going to be a tough player in the W.
Yeah, so, very, very positive what we saw today from Angel Reese, and that's just going to elevate the game and bring more interest when you have so many young, talented players. So, great night for her. So as I said earlier, we're gonna save the best for last, or should I say the worst for last? But the referee in the WNBA. Where can I start? Now we're not gonna make any excuses. They're not the primary reason for the Liberty losing this game tonight. No excuses, but they do play a part, and I'm really concerned with the level of the referees in this league. We've seen those past few weeks that the WNBA has constantly been playing catching up instead of being proactive on many different topics.
Yeah.
Whether it's the charter flights, announcing new teams, protecting the players from online hate and all those things, making sure that it's not a one-sided affair, that you obviously want to capitalize on the phenomenon that Caitlin Clark is, but don't try to undermine the other players and all the people that brought success before. So they already like falling behind a little bit on those parts. But the referee are a key component of assuring that the game is played the right way. And the quality of the less we talk about the ref, that means the better they are, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those calls, it's almost like you have to like throw yourself and you get a foul. Like you try to block someone just like raising your hands, and it's like bang, that's a foul. Questionable decisions, like they're not assertive enough, and that breaks the flow of the game. And the inconsistency, because there were also bad calls. Chicago at times complains as well from bad calls from the ref. They were also on the receiving end, and it's like the inconsistency is always there. Like they can never really be like just like equally good on different aspects of the game, and so that makes it a very frustrating experience watching the game, because it's a product, right? You want to make sure the product is good. The players are exceptional, but the ref has to be on a much better level. Yeah,
I mean, I was saying this last year and the year before that, and I'm sure the year before that.
Sorry to interrupt. Are they the rejects of the NBA? Is this like like leftovers from the NBA or?
No, I mean, I think the way the women's game is refereed, there are some slight differences versus the men's game. And the calls that they make versus what you would see in a men's game wouldn't happen. And so it's definitely, there are decisions that are made that are definitely different, that if this happened in the NBA, that call probably wouldn't have been made. But I've been saying it, that these refs, like, the caliber of player coming to the league is growing, getting better and better and better. It's going to keep going. The league is growing, and you're going to need new and better refs.
Oh, better training. Like, we know that it's a difficult job, and it's easier said
You're not going to get every call.
Than done.
They're going to miss some calls. We get that. Some calls are going to be wrong. Some calls, maybe it was a, ticky-tacky foul, You're going to have those things in a game where, I think Sabrina probably complained a couple of times to the ref.
JJ
definitely had a few words for the ref. Everybody did. I mean, you saw it. They were frustrated, and they had words for the ref. Just and the calls that were being made. And, yeah, some of them were definitely questionable. I also think for Sandy, they got to get better on her bench to help her out in determining when to challenge a call.
Yes.
Because before she challenged the call on Stewie, there were 2 calls that could have been challenged, and at least one of them could definitely have been won. And so by the time you got to Stewie, and we even saw the replay, I thought, this could go either way. This, and she ended up not winning. And I knew after that point, I was like, yep, she's never going to make a challenge for a while again. So, but I think they just need better, again, on the bench. Like, do they not have, because when we watch NBA games, Everybody got an iPad. Everybody got some device on the sideline. Every single coach on an NBA team, assistants, they all got some type of tablet on their side, like, and they can quickly look at a play. And it's almost like, I don't know if they just got one tablet, they don't have any tablets, because a few times when they could have challenged it, they were looking up at the big screen, hoping for a replay. And I'm thinking, wait, you don't have tablet, you don't have anything to call that? And so it's frustrating, because I think this is where the league needs to grow. Like, I don't know if this is something that, like, every team should have this. Every team should be able, if you're going to have these challenges, then you got to the teams need to have the equipment so they can quickly look at something and not have to look up at the big screen hoping to see a replay. And if it doesn't come in time, too late, it's over. Game continues. So I think as a league, it has to get better overall. The refs, better training, new refs, because obviously it's going to expand. You're adding 2 more teams over the next couple of years, so we'll probably have some new refs as well. But I just hope that this can change. We've talked about it year in and year out, that the refs can make some calls. And I'm not saying in a game that bad calls don't happen. They're going to happen. But to this level is concerning, especially just within one game.
Yeah, I mean, you see it when, like, you know, we have pretty good seats at the Barclays, and even like when sometimes like I try to, you know, record highlights of the games, you see how fast the game is. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes you don't realize if you watch on TV how fast things are going. The ball movements, the players, like, they're obviously professional athletes and they play at the highest level. But I feel like, especially the last 2 years, the game has gone even faster and faster and more athletics. And so therefore, the way you used to ref maybe a couple of years ago is already obsolete. Like, you have to keep up. And I feel like they're not keeping up. Mm-hmm. They ref a certain way, and it's not helping the game. And so, like, sometimes it can make a very frustrating experience, and the players as well are very frustrated. I cannot help thinking, you know, when I show you that video of the Atlanta against Dallas Wings game, when Cheyenne Parker is talking to the ref, trying to ask her for an explanation about, you know, a call in the game, and she was like, kind of like, really? And then she looked at the camera like, you know, she
Are
had
you
that.
Hearing this? Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Like, yeah, I think sometimes, calls are going to be made that I think even the refs probably shouldn't have made that call, and they can't take it back, I guess. But it's going to be a point of contention. I think I even said it with Caitlin Clark coming into the league. You know, I was like, welcome to the WNBA and the crazy refereeing. And I was like, because watching her play in particular, when she'll call out fouls and she'll, you know, say stuff to the ref when she wasn't, you know, playing college. Yeah. And they may not tee her up. And I was like, I feel like the refs in the league and the WNBA are a bit more sensitive. And they'll quick, and she got teed up one of her previous games for calling, you know, yelling at the ref. And so I just think, we got to get a better quality or just better training of our refs. And I know it's a tough job. It's going fast, but as the teams got to keep up, the refs got to keep up. You gotta do better.
Yeah, I mean, those are not personal attacks. Like, you want them to, you know, perform well. But just like you invest in the players, you have to also invest in good trainings for them to adapt to this new game. Yeah. So, you know, I hope it will happen. I'm not too hopeful because we've been talking about it for years now. But I felt like I needed to get this thing out of my chest because it was very frustrating tonight, regardless of whether it impacted the Chicago Sky win or not. The level of the officiating was not good tonight, and I had to mention that. So anyway, a night to forget for New York, but that's the beauty of the game. You have to quickly put that behind you and move on to the next game. And there's 40 games in the season plus the Olympics. Nobody expects any team to be undefeated. So you can't linger too much into this game. You gotta move forward and hopefully learn from your mistakes. So Saturday, like you said earlier, big matchup against Minnesota. I think it's a team that beat us last year once. It was sort of like a rescheduled game after the craziness of the smokes in New York. But they beat us once. We managed to beat them comfortably in Minnesota. But I feel like it's a different team. Still have their core players, Kaden McBride and Nafisa Collier. But they added a couple of pieces that are very interesting. And that could be a very interesting matchup in Minnesota.
Yeah, this is the matchup I actually wanted to see as sort of a litmus test for the Liberty, because I think, people haven't talked about Minnesota too much. Everyone's talking still about the Aces, obviously, because, yes, they're the champions from last year. And, yeah, you talk about Connecticut Sun. You talk about some of the top teams that were going head-to-head last year towards championship. But Minnesota was not, necessarily one of those teams last year, but they gave us a headache a few times, I think, even though the Liberty got a couple wins there. I think this Saturday is definitely a litmus test for them, because Minnesota, I feel like Minnesota could be top 5 this year. They are strong, for sure. They are strong, and even tonight, the game went to overtime.
Against Connecticut,
Connecticut. Connecticut won by just 1 point.
Yeah.
This game could have gone either way. So, for the Liberty, I hope that, they got to lock in. They got to lock in on defense. They got to be the aggressor. They got to stay out of foul trouble. They got to stay in rhythm and stay together. Because once you break that, I feel like they get a bit frazzled, and it becomes this hero ball trying to get shots, and they need to stay together in order to win this.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll be there to recap that game. So it's this Saturday, May 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and then finally they get more than 1 or 2 days of rest. They'll get 3 days. Until the next game, which will be Wednesday, May 29th. Against the Phoenix Mercury at home, followed by another home game. So we'll get to recap those things. But yeah, the last game of the week is Minnesota this weekend. So we'll be there to talk about it. But thank you so much, guys, for listening to our podcast. We always appreciate the support. And as we always say, Felicia,
let's go Liberty!